All right. So, Julie, you and I go back a couple of decades. We've been friends a
Yeah.
long time.
Yes.
Um, you are and always have been an expert in this field of long-term care. And so I'm delighted to have you join all of us and get us up to speed to the best of your knowledge of what's going on in California, 14 other states, and what to prepare for and what proper planning looks like.
Yep.
So with that, my
Absolutely.
friend, it's all you.
Oh, Barry, thanks a million. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining this call. I got to tell you how many times I've done this presentation in the last few months. It's a hot topic, you know, and like we were indicating earlier, there's a lot of misinformation going on around there. And so I just kind of want to clear things up as much as we can possibly do. Um, so that you can be adequately prepared for questions that are inevitably going to come from your clients. So I'm going to dive right in here. I'm going to share my screen and let's just go through a few slides here. All right. All right. So let's get through a couple of really important disclosures. Can practice some speed reading. All right. So first of all, I got to tell you, my phone's been ringing off the hook saying, "Oh my gosh, Julie, are you kidding me? Another tax in California? I mean, don't we pay enough already?" And, my response is, well, I get it. Trust me, I live in California too. But I think we need to peel back the onion a little bit and understand the why. Why are states looking at implementing some type of state mandated LTC program? And the number one reason, I think we're all familiar with Medicaid, which is the federal plan, right? Here in California, it's called Medi-Cal. Um, the number one expenditure of the Medicaid budget and Medi-Cal are long-term care expenditures. That's the number one reason. And that budget is being stretched to such a limit that states are thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to go broke. I say this all the time. The good news is we're living longer, right? But the bad news is we're living longer. And states are trying to prepare for that. We have more centenarians walking the earth right now than ever before. And, what comes with that? Well, you got to plan for that. I talk to so many people and they say, gosh, Julie, I'm not really afraid of dying. I'm afraid of outliving my assets, so that's a real concern. So, this is the number one reason that states are thinking, you know what, to give Medicaid a break, or Medi-Cal a break, we're going to put together this program and it's going to be for W-2 employees and it's going to be a percentage. Now, this all started in Washington. Okay, so as we know in Washington, it didn't go so well. And there are a lot of factors why it didn't go so well. Number one, they didn't consult the Department of Insurance. They didn't consult any of the carriers. They didn't do any of that stuff. They just kind of put something together, mishmash, didn't realize all the pitfalls. And, it got repealed and now they reintroduced it this past July. But a lot of problems went with that. And as those of you that did write long-term care in Washington, there was an opt-out period of 3 months and it just turned into a shambles. Well, California is saying we're not doing that. So, but I think we need to understand the why. So in Washington, just so you know what the tax looks like in Washington. Let's say you make $100,000 a year. Just keep it simple. The taxes on 100,000, that person's going to pay $580 a year in tax, and that goes into the Washington Cares Fund. And when they need long-term care services, they're going to access this Washington Cares Fund first. Once that's done, then they can hit Medicaid. Okay, so they're trying to provide some relief to the Medicaid budget. The benefit in Washington is $100 a day for 1 year. So what's that? $36,500. Not a lot of money. So people that are, those Boeing execs up in Washington that make quite a bit more than $100,000 a year. They're thinking, are you kidding me? I'm going to pay all this tax and I'm going to have this much benefit, so everybody wanted to opt out. And that's where the mess came through. But just so you understand, that's why a bunch of states are looking at this, because they're trying to not stress the Medicaid and Medi-Cal budget to its limit. Here are the states that are currently looking at similar legislation to Washington. You'll see that California, New York, Pennsylvania are highlighted in blue over here. California really is, everybody, all eyes are on California right now. New York, they're looking at a similar plan. Honestly, they just took a rubber stamp and went like this on their plan. It looks just like Washington. And the thing is, with New York at this very moment, now this could change clearly, but only traditional long-term care qualifies for an opt-out in New York. So even our Care Matters product in New York wouldn't qualify for an opt-out. Okay. Pennsylvania is looking at something similar, but you'll see these are the states that are looking at something similar. But again, California, all eyes are on California. And what are we going to do? So the difference here in California, like I mentioned, Washington didn't really take any input from the industry, which I think was a definite downfall. California is taking a much different approach. We have established a California LTC task force. And what they've done, they've literally, I call it the idea in a hat. They just put a bunch of ideas in a hat. They sorted through and they came down with 5 plans. Okay. And those 5 plans, if everybody can put their phones on mute, that would be awesome. Sorry.
Kit, that's you. Please mute your phone, Kit.
Okay. Thank you. So thanks for doing that. So Oliver Wyman, the task force has come up with 5 plans. Okay. And they've now turned those 5 plans over to Oliver Wyman Consultants. And Oliver Wyman Consultants is an actuarial firm, and they're tasked with seeing what the viability of each plan is, what the cost is going to look like, and they're tasked with that. And they have to get their recommendation back to the California LTC task force by January 1st, 2024. Now, what is that tax going to look like in California? Again, these are just things that are being considered. Like I mentioned, it'll be a payroll tax that'll apply to employees aged 18 and above. Okay. They're considering a tax split 50-50 between employee and employer. Washington didn't do that. It was 100% on the employee. They're considering that in California. Or it could be 0-100 or 25-75. They are considering waiving any sort of employer contribution for those businesses that have less than 50 employees. So they're going to be exempt from that. But other than that, they're considering maybe having a tax split. Now, in California, self-employed, those 1099 folks, they are included in this tax. Okay. Washington, they were exempt, but in California, not exempt. Okay. Low income individuals, more than likely, they're going to have their premium waived because they're going to go on Medi-Cal anyway. Possible cap for high earners. This is directly coming from those Boeing execs in Washington that are thinking, are you kidding? There's no tax, no cap on this. So possible cap for those high income earners. So that's something that is being considered. So how are you going to qualify for the state plan? Well, again, other features that are being considered: benefit trigger, 2 out of 6 activities of daily living or cognitive impairment. They're following the HIPAA guidelines. Now, you have to understand, in Washington, again, they didn't consult anybody on this. Their triggers in Washington are 3 out of 10 for their state plan, for the Washington Cares Fund. And cognitive impairment is 1 of the 10. So I could be cognitively impaired, but if I still need to satisfy 2 more ADLs, activities of daily living, in order to go on the Washington Cares Fund. So at least California is saying, no, we're going to follow HIPAA guidelines. We're going to do 2 out of 6 or cognitive impairment. Benefit eligibility, we don't know what that's going to be yet. 18, 30, 40, 50, 65. We're not sure, what that benefit eligibility age is going to be. Direct reimbursement to the state certified caregiver. Now, here's what I want you to know. With the state plan, you're going to have to pick if you want to use the California plan. There's going to be a provider list. Okay, you can't just have anybody take care of you. You've got to pick from this provider list. Now, if you have a family member that you want to take care of you, I mean, they're going to have to go get certified and get on that list. Okay, but it's going to be a direct reimbursement. So again, save your receipts, send them in, get reimbursed. And that's how that's going to work. Now, there is a 10-year vesting that they're considering. So what happens to people that are nearing retirement? Well, it'll be reduced pro rata, right? So if you pay 3 years, you'll get 30% of that benefit. You pay for the next 7 years and you retire, you get 70% of the benefit. So here are the 5 plans that Oliver Wyman is looking at. Okay, you see it's kind of across the map. If you look up here, $1,500 a month for 2 years, that's kind of like Washington, except half the benefit, but twice as long. 4,600 for 2 years, 3,000 for 1 year. This is what Washington has right now. 4,500 for 18 months. And then you'll see here, 6,000 for 2 years. Of course, this one, this option 5, is of course the most popular, right? Everybody loves this one, but it's going to be, who knows how much that's going to cost. But the nice thing about option 4 and 5, it's a shared benefit pool with your spouse, domestic partner. So if you have a non-working spouse, they can opt into this plan, right? They're not going to be omitted. There's international portability. I mean, this one really is the kitchen sink. But we'll see what Oliver Wyman comes up with. But these are the 5 that are being considered right now. Okay, so 2 things to get off of this page. I know there's a lot of words on here, but 2 things. Number 1, if you want to qualify for an opt-out, we don't know what the effective date is. Okay, if it's determined, because let me back up. The state is thinking of rolling this out to all of us January 1st, 2025. Okay, that's when they're kind of targeting for this to actually go into effect, right? But as far as opt-out goes, does that mean December 31st, 2024? If you own a long-term care policy, placed by December 31st, 24 and before, does that qualify for an opt-out? Or if it's January 1st, 2025, are they going to say, you know what, it has to be a year prior, January 1st, 2024? Are they going to require that? I've mentioned Sean Britt from our advanced sales, and she talked to somebody, she knows people on the task force, and she said, she was talking to them about this. Will inflation be required? Because this is the other unknown, right? Is inflation going to be required? If it is, only traditional and linked benefit plans, that offer inflation would be eligible for the opt-out. But Sean went to them and said, hey, well, what about life with rider? And they said, no, not right now. And she gave them the example of, well, what about those younger clients that don't really have a long-term care need? Maybe they have more of a life insurance need. And what if they buy, maybe, and not 50,000 death benefit. I'm talking, a significant death benefit, maybe 500,000. Let's say somebody buys 500,000, you put the 2% rider on there. That's going to exceed $6,000 a month, right? And she said, why wouldn't that qualify? They said, point taken. I'll take it back to the task force and we'll talk about it. Right now, she asked them, she said, how likely is inflation going to be required on the plan that you purchase for the opt-out? And they said, more than likely, it's going to be required. So if you saw on these plans here, you'll see CPI if possible. if possible. This one does have CPI annually. So there is going to be some type of inflation if possible. So they're saying, hey, if you purchase a policy before, we don't know what that date is going to be. If it's January 1st, 2024, that means any long-term care policy, traditional linked benefit that has inflation on it, you place it this year. Hopefully it'll qualify for the opt-out. We don't know what the benefit is going to be. Again, we don't know what California is going to go with. If California goes with $3,000 a month for a year, do you purchase $3,000 a month? You don't know. If they go with 6,000. So people ask me all the time, Julie, what should I tell my clients? What should I tell them to buy? Should I tell them 4,600? Should I tell them 6,000? I can't advise you on that. All I can say is, do what the client can manage, right? If they can do 6,000, great, but maybe not everybody can afford that, right? Or they don't want to pay for that. Maybe do 4,600 a month. So really at this moment, I can't advise you on that. But will inflation be required? They said more than likely. So again, if the effective date to have your own policy is January 1st, that means this year is in play. If the last predicted date is December 31st, that means next year is in play in order to put a policy in place in order to qualify for the opt-out. So I think it's going to be good to know who's going to benefit from this state bill, right? Well, low-income employees, those are the people that they don't qualify for Medicaid, but they can't afford long-term care coverage. They're going to benefit from this. Uninsurable employees, older ages, they'll probably pay a lot less in premium tax than that benefit that they're going to get. And then younger employees, they couldn't buy a policy if they wanted to. They're going to benefit from the state plan. But the problem is, you saw on those other ones, CPI, they might not see enough inflation over their lifetime. So I always say, hey, consider a side fund for those people. And who else is going to benefit? People retiring in the next 10 to 15 years. They have time to fully vest without having to pay that tax over their lifetime. Not that 30-year-old that's in the workforce and he's going to have to pay this tax for the next 40 years, right? Or whenever, 35 years until he retires. And even though the benefit's going to be small, there's still going to be leverage due to that, that short payment time. Who's going to be left out? We need to know this too. Well, remember, these are people that are working. These are W-2 employees. So if you're already retired, you're not going to pay the tax, but also you're not going to get any benefit either. Unless that person wants to go back to work for 10 years, which I really doubt they want to do, they're going to be left out. Non-working spouses, unless, those option 4 and 5 that I showed you that include spouses. But if California doesn't go with option 4 or 5, they're going to be left out. Okay, they don't have to pay for it, but they're also going to be left out. And then people who move out of the state, even if you're vested, you're not going to be able to tap into that. Now, here at Nationwide, we do have portability, right? You can use your Care Matters plan anywhere in the states. We even have an international benefit. It's limited. You can only use the base with inflation internationally, but it is portable. But yeah, you cannot use the state plan. If you want to tap into that, you have to use it in California. Bottom line, why should you talk about long-term care with clients today? Why should we even bother with this? Why is it a big deal? Well, number one, a third of the country is discussing something. It's a thing. It is a thing. And if somebody is looking for a policy opt-out, they're going to have to purchase that policy prior to the effective date. Again, we don't know when that effective date's going to be, but purchasing it prior to that, they have inflation on there. Hopefully it's the right monthly amount to qualify, but it has to be purchased prior. Avoid the potential rush. That's huge. I think all of you remember in Washington, there was a bottleneck towards the end. And I think some of you remember, some carriers on 8 a.m. on a Monday morning, you'd get an email that says, 5 p.m. today, no more apps. We're not accepting any more apps after 5 p.m. today from Washington. Simple as that, same day. Carriers were pulling out left and right. So even if you wanted to buy a long-term care policy, you couldn't because everybody left Washington. More affordable, right? Last I checked, things don't get cheaper as we get older, right? And most people, not everybody, sometimes people, their health does improve, but a lot of times health does not improve with time. So just because you have the money to pay for it, your health actually buys it, right? So more affordable now. Non-working spouses were more than likely not be covered. Like I said, unless California goes with those last two, not sure if they're going to do that. And this is important. Clients are more likely to work with you now on a realistic plan, not just for the tax avoidance. I got to tell you, people have been calling me and saying, Julie, how can I get my clients to avoid this tax? And I'm like, okay, we need to change the discussion, because talking about long-term care planning to get out of the tax is not going to bode well for you. You need to talk about the tax and why states are looking at this to do some meaningful long-term care planning. It's just the opposite, right? And you want to talk to them on, again, something that's realistic. Look at what's in their portfolio. What can we use to maybe reposition? It's a thing. Like I said, we're getting older. So I always caution when somebody says, what can I do to get out of the tax? No, that's the wrong way to look at it. Why plan with private long-term care? Well, clearly better leverage of your money. Again, that 30-year-old that's going to pay that tax for the next 35, 40 years, he's still going to have this much of a benefit at the end, right? So if you pay more premium now, obviously you're going to have better leverage. Guaranteed premium and benefits, right? That state plan, if too many people opt out, guess what? They'll probably reevaluate and that tax is probably going to go up. Well, with you have your own plan, everything's guaranteed. Here at Nationwide, we have fully guaranteed everything, premiums, benefits, all that good stuff. Flexible premium choices. Again, you're talking to somebody, maybe they want to knock it out in 10 years. Here at Nationwide, we've got single 5-pay, 10-pay, pay to 65. Maybe somebody wants to take advantage of that, knock it out in their working years and be done. Don't have to worry about it anymore. Protection of premium. Okay. I really doubt if I pay into this tax and I pass away and I never use it, I really, really doubt California is going to say, you know what? Julie paid all that tax for the state fund and now she passed away and never used it. We're going to return all that money to her beneficiary. Yeah, California's not going to do that. They're going to say, yay, she didn't use it, right? So state protection of premium. Here at Nationwide, we have a death benefit. We also have a 20% residual death benefit. You don't use it, you don't lose it, right? So that is something, those of you that do long-term care, we all know the use it or lose it objection, right? This is something that will help you get over that hump. Guaranteed inflation. If you choose, 3% compound or whatever, each and every year you're going to get that inflation increase. So you can do good planning, right? So at age 85 what that benefit's going to look like. With the state plan, who knows what that's going to look like. Again, we talked about the portability. Not more than likely not going to be portable unless they do those last two. Private coverage, again, one size fits all. That's not going to work. Again, you could do some really good planning to fit that individual's situation. And why private insurance at claim time? I know there's a lot of words on here. It drives me crazy, but really two things I want you to take from this. Number one, when you have your own policy, you have choices. Everybody likes choices, right? The state plan, like I said, you're going to have to choose from that provider list and hope to God that you like some of them on there. This, you have choices when you have your own plan. And this, it's in bold for a reason. increases your marketability as a patient. I cannot stress this to you enough. Okay. Barry indicated earlier, we've known each other for a long, long time. And when I started in this long-term care industry, I didn't know what anything cost. I was living in Orange County. I was living in Newport Beach. And I started out and I didn't know what anything cost. So what I did was I went to different facilities in Orange County. I went to this really great place. This is a little over 20 years ago, mind you. I went to this facility in Corona Del Mar and it was gorgeous. It was absolutely gorgeous. I wanted to move in then and there. It was so beautiful, but it was $400 a day, right? And we're talking a little over 20 years ago. Then I went a little more inland and I found this place that was $100 a day. Not so good. It was one of those places that nobody wants to go to, right? Not good. Then I went to this other place and it was $250 a day. It was clean. It was nice. It was doable. It wasn't the Corona Del Mar place, but it was doable, right? So I thought, okay, so now I know what you get for $250 a day, right? So I fibbed a little. I don't condone fibbing, but these facilities aren't going to give you a tour unless they think that you may have a patient, right? So I said I was looking for my aunt and, they gave me a tour of the place. And I kid you not, the first thing out of their mouth was, how's your aunt going to pay? I mean, let's face it, the facility, their businesses too, right? They have to know where the funding's coming from. First thing out of the mouth was, how is your aunt going to pay? And I kind of did a little test. I said, oh, well, my aunt's on Medi-Cal. Can I tell you that when I said she's a Medi-Cal patient, one of them said, oh, there's a 5-year waiting list. Another one said, oh, we don't have any beds here, but our sister company out in Barstow, does have an available bed. And we all know how far Barstow is. It's not around the corner, right? Again, that's with Medi-Cal. Then I said to a couple of them, I said, well, she's got a long-term care policy. Oh, they rolled out the red carpet for me when I said that. Oh, she has long-term care because they know they're going to get paid, right? Here's bullet point. 81% of nursing homes receive less than the cost of that patient's care. Guess what? That Corona Del Mar place, if everybody was a Medi-Cal patient, trust me, it wouldn't be as nice as it is, because they can't provide that level of care if they're not getting that funding, right? So it was a really eye-opening experience. So again, having your own policy increases your marketability as a patient. Last thing I want to mention to you, if you don't have this on your phone, I highly recommend that you put it on your phone. On the App Store, here are the QR codes if you want to QR code it. I have it on my phone because I think this is a good starting point when you're having the long-term care planning conversation with clients. Because, let's face it, we have lives and unless you're experiencing it firsthand or have been through it, you're not really sure what the cost is, right? So you don't have to go to different facilities like I did 20 years ago and fib your way in. We've done the homework for you right here. So just go to the App Store, look up Nationwide LTC Cost Calculator, put this on your phone. You can look up different states. And then over here, there's a drop down. You can, look at different states within different cities within the state. It defaults to annual. I'm not a fan of that. I usually go here and I look at monthly because I think people have a better grip on, what their budget looks like monthly. And then, it'll pop up all these different types of care. For home care, you can push out the dial 30 years. You can also calculate how many hours of home care you want to do. It's pretty neat, actually. Now, everybody's eyes always go to this nursing home cost. Don't do that. I tell you that right now. What I start with, let the client take you there, but start with the home care cost. Why do I say that? For a couple reasons. Number one, nobody wants to go to a nursing home. No one. I don't want to go. Okay. So trying to get somebody to insure for something that they never want to go to, you're not going to have success. I think talking to clients about, let's talk about how are we going to keep you at home as long as possible should something happen, and talk about home care costs. I would start there. Okay. Now, informal care, we've got that number here too, but I always say start with home care or informal care. Why do I say that? Again, nobody wants to go to a facility. So if you at least cover that cost, not everybody is going to end up in a nursing facility. It's a fact. Actually, a very small percentage of people end up in a facility. So I would start with home care. If and when they need to go to a facility, guess what? You're not making the car payment. You're not, paying for the house up in Tahoe or whatever. You're not paying all the bills that are associated with living at home. You can take that money and reappropriate it to the cost of nursing home. Okay. You already have this cost covered, then you can maybe supplement it that way and kind of back into it. Now, if the client says, hey, I want to cover more than that, hey, great. But that's where kind of a starting point. When you put this on your phone, there's going to be a one-time code that you have to put in. It's NWLTC, which is down here. It's going to ask you one time. And then after that, you can have access to that cost of care calculator. Sum it all up, Washington, they have a population of 8 million. They literally shut down the industry. California has a population of 40 million. Think about that, 40 million. I encourage you, no matter what happens with the state tax, talk to your clients now. That way, let them know what's going on. Let them know what the state's thinking about, and do some really good long-term care planning now. Avoid the rush. You don't want to pressure sell anybody. And that way you can really build a solid long-term care strategy while all the options are still available to you. Okay. That way you can work on definitely a far more comprehensive plan than anything the state could provide. With that, I'm going to stop sharing, and let's see if anybody has any questions.
Julie, there's one in the chat box.
Let's check it out.
Oh, okay. That's Kaylin's probably gonna make a recording of this, so I think Kaylin, did you record this? Okay, we have the recording, so they can reach out to us. Stacking of coverage, right. Julie, that comes up from time to time. If you have an old plan, it's not gonna be enough.
Yeah, you can stack. You can definitely stack. Now, the nice thing about here at Nationwide, remember, we're 100% cash indemnity, right? So we're not going to look at what has been paid out. It's cash. So you trigger the benefit, we're going to pay you out the cash. So we're not going to coordinate benefits. That's what I'm trying to say. But yes, you can definitely stack benefits.
How many different long-term care solutions does Nationwide have?
Oh, goodness. We've got Care Matters 2, which is in California, which is our individual contract. We have Your Life Care Matters in New York. That's our first version of Care Matters. It's still being sold in the state of New York. That's the only outlier right now on the old product, but everywhere else is Care Matters 2, except Montana. We don't have a product there at all. We also have Care Matters Together, not in California. Arizona and DC is on Monday. It's going to be rolling out in Arizona and DC. So the only states that won't have Care Matters Together, which is our joint second to die linked benefit policy, which is the first of its kind. It's a joint second to die life insurance policy, 100% cash indemnity. Okay. That's going to be available in all states except California, New York, and Montana. So Everywhere else, come Monday, September the 11th, Arizona and DC are going to be included in Care Matters Together. So we've had a lot of success with Care Matters Together because of that cash indemnity component. So.
All right, there's another question. Someone came in probably at the end of our conversation, mine and yours, about what's going on in California today at 10:30. And that letter that the commissioner sent out about scare tactics.
Yes. I thought that was a really good letter to send out to people because, again, I was getting bombarded with phone calls saying, Julie, oh my gosh, did you see what this carrier put out and what this carrier put out and what Costco put out and this and that. And, you know, it's all, nothing has passed. Nothing has been done. So it's amazing that, you know, these carriers and Costco, et cetera, have been putting this stuff out. Nothing has happened. So don't believe that stuff. Honestly, consult with, honestly, I told you about Sean Britt. She is very close to the California LTC task force. She's a part of our advanced consulting group here at Nationwide. If you have any questions for me, I can get them over to Sean and she can answer them for you because she has her ear to the ground on this one for sure. But nothing has happened in California yet. So nobody needs to panic just yet. But I think it's important that everybody understand the why and do some realistic planning now with your clients.
All right,
Care
we
Matters.
you also, there's a question about the long-term care rider on permanent insurance that you have.
Yes, we have a LTC. Yes, thank you, Barry. We do have an LTC rider on life insurance, and it's a true long-term care rider. All of our long-term care plans that we have, they have one thing in common. All of them are 100% cash indemnity. No bills or receipts to submit monthly, no restrictions on how the benefits are used. Okay, there's another
question. Yeah. Joint.
For Care Matters Together, both spouses have to qualify for long-term care. Yes. The neat thing with Care Matters Together, we have two rate classes with Care Matters Together. We have preferred and standard. And how you can think of the preferred rates on Care Matters Together, it's the same as Care Matters 2. So if you qualify for Care Matters 2, which is accept or reject, you're going to qualify for Care Matters Together preferred rates. Why do I say that? Well, on our Care Matters 2 plan, the range of it's accept or reject, but the range of insurability, you can think of it up to a table 4. So if you're table 4 or better, you're going to qualify for Care Matters 2. On Care Matters Together, preferred is table 4 or better. With our standard rate, we're giving you an additional 4 tables. So if you qualify up to table 8, you can get the standard rates. Okay. Now, 2 people apply. Obviously, 2 can be preferred, but if one person's standard, the other person has to be preferred. They can't both be standard. If you're both standard, you're not going to get a Care Matters Together plan. So preferred and standard, only one person can be standard. So yes, they do have to qualify. Thank you, Wilson.
Did you touch on anything about chronic illness out there, riders, in comparison to what the state will do? And
yeah, very good question. So chronic illness riders do not qualify at this time. Those are considered 101G, right? Those are not going to qualify for the opt-out. It has to be a true long-term care rider, which is 7702B. Okay. Right now, the rider on life insurance in California is not going to qualify because, again, remember, they're saying inflation is going to be likely on that opt-out plan. So that rules out the 7702B rider on life insurance, right? Because you can't add inflation to that. And in option 2 life insurance, that's not considered inflation. So right now, only traditional and linked benefit where you can add inflation would potentially qualify for the opt-out.
all right, and how would the state know that I have a plan?
Yeah. So you're going to have to go on, and this hasn't been determined, but how they did it in Washington is you just go to the website and you opt out, right? Now in Washington, here's the big fail that they did up in Washington. People went on the website, opted out, and there wasn't a opt out, right, to continue. So people were buying plans, opting out, dropping their plan. Okay. A lot of chargebacks to those people that thought, oh, great, I'm going to be in the money. Yeah, no. I mean, people were buying plans, opting out, and then dropping their plan. California is saying no. Each year, you're going to have to certify. That's something that's being considered. So you're going to have to hang on to that thing. You can't just buy it and opt out and see you later. Each year, you're going to have to certify that you have coverage. So how and when and how they're going to do that, especially if there's going to be an employee contribution. We're not sure about that, but typically that's how they're going to do it. You go online and you opt out that way.
There's another question for you in the chat box.
So only a Care Matters product will qualify for the opt out, in other words. Yeah, or any other linked benefit where you can add inflation, or traditional long-term care, right? So traditional, that's 7702B, right? Because it's true long-term care insurance. So traditional and a linked benefit plan where you can add that inflation. Yep. But that might change. Life with Rider might be considered, but that has not happened yet. So
Other states, any ideas how fast other ones are coming? You were
yeah,
discussing that in the earlier map.
honestly, Barry, they're in a wait and see. They want to see what California is going to do. So nothing has been said in those other states yet. They've proposed it, but a follow-up hasn't really happened in those other states. All eyes are on California right now. And how are we going to pull this one off if we do? So
Any other questions from
I want to just mention, we do have a white paper that discusses what I went over today. I'll get it over to Barry. And it's just talking about what the state is looking at, why you should be considering. It's pretty much a recap of this presentation. So I'll get that over to Barry as soon as we finish up today.
Okay.
Who do we reach out to for more questions in the future? You can reach out to your team at BGA Direct. You can reach out to me. Like I said, Sean Britt is very close to the California LTC task force. And like I said, she pays attention to everything. So you can ask me. I also have a link. I'll get this over to you too, Barry. I have a link to the California LTC task force. It's a public site. Anybody can go on there. You can follow along. So I'll get that over too. So the link to the California LTC task force and the white paper, I'll get those two things over to you. Thanks, Barry.
All right, I put my email address and I can route anybody on this to someone to help them directly. You know, Ryan, you're on here. Ken, you're on here. But you want to put, there's a few other people in there. I see Trent's here. Stephanie's here. If you want to put your information in that chat box there. Julie, when's a good time for us all to come back with you? How often we should be having conversations?
Yeah. I would say let's circle back towards the end of the year and see what happens. Right now we're in September. I would say let's circle back in a couple months and see what's going on. I'm sure we'll have some good updates for you by then.
Okay. How often are they California doing these meetings? I know they got rescheduled from August. It's actually right now.
Yeah.
It started 20 minutes ago. Are they doing it monthly at this point, or it's a 21st meeting?
Yeah, right. Well, who knows, right? I know they're doing that one today, and we'll see what happens. When do they schedule the next one? So hopefully it'll be something monthly, but I can't guarantee that.
Okay. All right. We might be out of questions for you. I think I am.
Okay.
Excellent job. Excellent.
Oh, thanks a million. Thanks for having me. I appreciate
Well, it's always
it
good to
very
be
much.
had.
That's right. That's right.
All right, great to see you. We'll talk soon. Thanks a
Absolutely.
ton. It was very good.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye, Julie.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.